Welcome to The Pivot Place. I'm your host, Victoria Coit, strategist, pivot advocate, and believer that your next breakthrough is just one shift away. Here, we dive into bold conversations with leaders, creatives, and changemakers, exploring the moments that redefine careers, businesses, and lives. Let's get into it. Today, we're speaking to Dr. Shanelle Dawson, the innovative CEO and founder of Access Dental Laboratories. Dr. Dawson's journey exemplifies what we celebrate here at The Pivot Place: the courage to transform challenges into opportunities and the vision to create meaningful change. After dedicating years as an educator, Dr. Dawson made her own remarkable pivot into entrepreneurship, establishing Access Dental Laboratories to address crucial gaps in dental care accessibility. Under her leadership, Access Dental has become a beacon of innovation in the industry, committed to providing quality dental services to underserved communities. Beyond her professional achievements, Dr. Dawson is a passionate champion for women's wellness and empowerment. Her recent rebrand reflects her holistic approach to health. Understanding the true wellness encompasses both physical and mental well-being. Dr. Dawson's story reminds us that it's never too late to reinvent yourself and pursue your true calling. Her commitment to community service, combined with her entrepreneurial spirit, makes her an inspiration to anyone considering their own pivot. Welcome, Dr. Dawson.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I can't keep saying Dr. Dawson. I'm just going to say
call me
Shanelle. Right. Welcome, Shanelle.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So let's just jump into it because your pivot is one of my faves. If I had to just write a top 5 pivot, okay? And so tell us, who is Dr. Dawson? Who is Shanelle? What do you want the folks to know?
You know, I often say I'm really just a girl. I really am. When you peel back all the layers, I am just Shanelle Dawson from San Bernardino, California, Delman Heights community area. That is it. Everything that I am is because of where I'm from and the people who brought me through. I came from a large family. Lots of aunts and uncles and cousins that I grew up with, and I am a part of that. And I think that when it comes to really trying to be true to who I am, I go back to my source, which is that's where I am. That's who I am. That's where I'm from. And of course, God, but that's just who I am.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mentioned that you were an educator, right? And you started off in education. Why do you value education so much? What does it mean to you?
So what a lot of people don't know is I'm the oldest grandchild. My grandmother has 30-something grandchildren younger than me. I know. It's a lot of us. And I loved school my whole life. I started school when I was probably around 1.5, 2 years old. My mother had me young. And so because she still had to finish high school, I was in an educational program. So I went from one educational program to the next educational program to elementary school. And what I realized was education is the one space that I did well, but it was also the space that I was free to be me. A bit of a nerd, extremely studious, really just want to do well. And so that was my space, my sphere of excellence. But then when I started looking at my family dynamics, I have aunts who dropped out of school in elementary, dropped out in middle school. My mom graduated from high school, but I don't have many other aunts who did. I have some who got GEDs. And so from there, then it went to my cousins. And I have cousins who dropped out in elementary.
Oh, wow.
I have cousins who were put in juvenile hall early and were not released until graduating from high school. And so what I learned really, really early was if I wanted to change the trajectory of my life, I had to go to school. I didn't know what I was going to do in school, but I know school for me was the great equalizer. And I knew that if I stayed in school and stayed committed, I wouldn't be relegated to all that I've seen growing up.
Yeah. So it was a means to an end.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I knew. You know, I grew up around, pimps and prostitutes and all of that, drug dealers. And so when you see it, you be it,
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, I want to be something else.
Yeah.
And so I worked hard in school, and I was like, you know what? If I don't know how to do anything, I will write these papers. I will take these classes. I will meet with teachers. I will do what's necessary because I know what the end result could be if I don't.
Yeah. So Dr. Dawson is what emerged from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you chose education to teach others, basically, because like you said, you were a nerd.
Right.
And
you
were
know
good
what?
at it.
I realized our current educational system is not created for Black and brown children. And I've said that since I knew I'd be a teacher. And had I been a boy, I'm not sure if I'd have made it through because I believe that many of the things I did in school were forgivable.
Okay.
But as a Black boy, I cannot see some of the things I've done being forgivable. I was an athlete. And so, athletes are measured differently. And so there was that. But when I think about all the young men I know who dropped out of school, who could not make it through, who were kicked out, I think about if I can get in here and make a difference, then maybe that's one less being kicked out. I feel like I was an inside man. Let me be the inside man. Let me figure out how to advocate for all those children who look like me but don't have someone like me. And that's what I saw education as.
And as an advocate, and as you defined as an inside man, right? What did you discover that could help educators that aren't used to educating Black and brown children, that they don't even think about? Like, what was talk about it. Let's just say that.
What I will say, when I got to a certain point, and by now I'm ready to scream from the mountaintops what I've learned, and I had a professor tell me, what you have to say is important, but they're not going to listen to you till you have the alphabets behind your name. And so that was the first thing. I was like, okay, well, then let me go get this alphabet. And so I got my doctorate. And when I got my doctorate, I was like, I'm a consultant. I'm a consultant already. I got it. And I had a professor tell me, no, you're more than a consultant. You are an expert in the field. And I said, okay, well, tell me why I'm an expert. She said, there are 435 pages that say you're an expert. That's my dissertation. I was like, ooh. You're right. But what I realized in education is to work with students from diverse backgrounds and situations, you have to serve as a counselor, advocate, role model, disciplinarian, and surrogate parent. You know why? Because education is a microcosm of our society. And if you look at the things that take place in our society, how could we possibly expect students to navigate all of these things? I used to say the prison system does not trickle down to college. It trickles down to high schools, and so you have to be everything to these young folk. And that's the one thing, because people actually think you can stand up and regurgitate facts and students are going to be like, oh my God, yeah, I want to learn.
Right.
That's not true. And it's not accurate. To teach them, you have to love them. And if you don't love them, then you are in the wrong field. And so it's the counselor, advocate, role model, disciplinary, and surrogate parent, and you have to love them. That's what I would tell anyone. And anyone who says, well, you really don't have to love them. Well, actually, you do.
Well,
you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And absent that love is what we see today.
It's what we see today.
Okay. So your background is in education, and you also have this piece of you, and I would dare to say that it is part of your calling, the entrepreneurship piece of you, right? And that you've sort of put together in a way that is successful, right? And so I mentioned that you are on a wellness journey as well, that I've sort of been able, blessed enough to witness on this wellness journey. And as an educator and an entrepreneur, all these things, how did you pull them together? And how are, let's talk about that.
You know, when it came to education, I just wanted to do the work.
Yeah.
And whoever gave me an opportunity to talk about it, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that work. And so I started doing keynote speeches. I started doing small group discussions. I started doing presentations. I was like, okay, this is my space because I can let people know the only way we can really impact education is if we make drastic changes when it comes to the people who are leading education and teaching in education. Now, when it came to deciding to talk about it, I realized, okay, this is a business model. And not only was it a business model, it was a profitable business model. And like I said, I had a professor tell me, you have to get the alphabets behind your name. But the alphabets also meant that I could charge top dollar to appear, to speak, to write, to do whatever. And so I was able to use all of my life experiences, all of my theoretical knowledge to create this company where now I am not just teaching, but I am consulting in the field that I have chose to be an expert in. Well, then there came an opportunity for me to use what I was able to earn, create, develop as an educator in different opportunities in entrepreneurship. Okay. What I realize also is I'm not sure I'm a good employee. I'm not.
Listen, that is the best realization in the world.
I'm not. When I have to deal with someone and I'm under their charge, I'm like, well, I don't even know how you got that job. You know, I'm not sure I'm a good employee. Now, if I have great leaders, I know how to follow. But I'm in education. I haven't always had great leaders, you know. But I also realized that, okay, what does leadership look like? Okay, we'll build it. You know, build it. What do you want to do? Make a difference. How? Uplift a community. Okay, build it. You know? And so that was basically it for me, creating something that I could use to help uplift a community and people in the community. Wellness is something when I talk about wellness, because I was actually going to be a personal trainer before I was going to be a teacher. So over 20, maybe 30 years ago, I was going to be a personal trainer. And so wellness had always been something that I wanted to do. It's just that when I was offered a job, personal trainers weren't making money when I was coming up. I was like, oh, no, I can't do nothing with that.
Right.
But out the gate, 20-something years ago, I was offered a contract for like $50,000. I was like, yeah, I'm going to take that. And so I put wellness and personal training on the back burner, you know, but somehow, some way, life comes full circle. And you realize, I realized I needed to rely more on wellness for me because of all the things that were going on in my life. And it was really just like a reset, a reset.
And so let's talk about the wellness journey. Like, where did you start?
So November 2022, I went to Africa.
Oh, okay.
I went to Africa. And I tell anyone and everyone, you cannot go to Africa and come home the same.
Yeah.
You can't. Once you are standing on that hallowed ground and you know these are the steps your ancestors walked in, you get the stirring. You know you have to do something. And what I realized was there were a lot of things in my life that were taking place that I could no longer accept. There were feelings and emotions that I was experiencing that I refused to ignore. And I came home and I knew I wouldn't be the same. Okay. And I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? And I think I decided to be plant-based. I started doing yoga. I hired a therapist. And I remember my first few sessions with the therapist, I didn't even know what we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm pretty sure I need to have you in my life. And so let's just talk about random stuff.
Right.
And she was like, okay. And we did. I mean, like, I talk about work and not being able to show up authentically in certain spaces and having to wear a mask as a Black woman. I talked about imposter syndrome, not believing I am worthy of success, just all of it. And then one day I said, okay, I know what I'm gonna talk about now. And she was like, okay, good. And
how many sessions in were you about?
This is what's embarrassing. Probably like 10 sessions in.
Okay.
And so we
you had to get that off. You had to get it off.
Yeah. We had built a rapport.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting there and I was like, okay, now it's really time to talk. And she's like, okay. And I was like, so let me tell you what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And she just kind of sat back and was like, okay. I said, so let me tell you what I'm going to do. And I had already had a plan. What I learned about the pivot is sometimes it can be terrifying.
Yeah.
And what I also realized was I had to be willing to lose everything to save myself. And I think for years, I was afraid to lose. And then when I got to the point where I knew that nothing was more important than me, I had to place value on myself. I said, okay, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to lose? And the answer was everything. I didn't care if I started over at zero. Yeah. It did not matter to me. And that's when I realized that I could make drastic changes in my life. And it didn't matter what anyone said or thought. I didn't care about the perspective of other people.
Amen.
I knew I had to do it for me. And I realized that fear can be debilitating. And fear will stop you in your tracks. Yes. But on the other side of fear is courage. And courage is way more exhilarating. And I decided I would just ride with courage. I'm going to do it afraid. And I'm going to keep doing it afraid. And I'm not going to let loss keep me from living. Yeah. And that's what it was. Sacrifice everything, bet on myself. There really are no losses. There are only lessons.
Amen.
And so I was like, my next day is my best day. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And sometimes I was choking on it, but I was still one bite at a time. And I just decided. I was like, no, whole life changing. Everything. I don't care about the images people thought they knew of me. I don't care about the narrative that people thought they had. I don't care about the stories people told themselves. All I cared about was my wellness.
Yeah.
And so everything I did from that point on was about, does it feel good to your soul? Is it going to benefit you long term? Can you make an informed decision about it? Are you in a space, a mental space, to be able to make a decision? Yeah. But I mean, because I had 10 sessions already, I was like, yeah, my mental is good, you know? I remember I told myself I was going to eat healthy for 100 days. I got to like day 90. And there were people who were close to me like, you got a lot going on. You might want to keep eating healthy, you know, because otherwise your whole system might shut down because of everything you have going on. And, you know, I just did it. I did it.
Yeah. How do you feel?
Relieved first that I did it.
Yeah.
Light. I do. I feel light. And I feel like I took charge of my life. I remember listening, because I listened to different people. And I remember listening to something Oprah said, and it had to do with releasing. I know you want it. I know you want it terribly bad.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to release it for it to actually come to you, whatever that it is.
Right.
And so I went through a period of just releasing everything and knowing that whatever was supposed to be mine would come my way. And that was it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The number of people who've reached out to me privately, who've said, if you were able to do it with A, B, C, and D, I can do this. I can do this. And, you know, my comment is always the same. I would have done it without anything. It didn't matter to me. I just knew that I wasn't operating wholly, and I needed to be me.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think that that's the piece sometimes that gets lost is when we do things, there's all of those pieces that we say, okay, we're willing to release this. We don't care what people think, but we don't often think about how just the action of releasing releases something in somebody else, right? Unknowingly. Right? It's just like, it's almost like our job to get free.
Right.
You know, because if that's our job to get free, then it frees other people. And so it's really like the most unselfish thing that you can do. Right.
Yeah. And that's how I felt. I was like, somebody's going to see this and they're going to see that they can do it. You know, they're going to see that they can do it. It wasn't easy.
Absolutely.
It wasn't easy at all. And I remember I have people close to me and they would say, standing next to you is like secondhand smoke. We got to be willing to deal with the smoke that comes with just standing next to you because of decisions you chose to make for your well-being. And I was like, yeah, you do. You know, women, men, people who are close to me. And if you pose the question to any of them, they'd be like, oh, no, it was most certainly secondhand smoke. There were people who actually had the audacity to call. And most of them, they're like, have you called Shanelle? You should probably call Shanelle. Yeah. Oh, no, don't call me. Call her.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that was probably the most difficult aspect of it, because as an individual, I'm built for it. I'm built for it. Do your worst. I didn't like to see people close to me having to deal with certain things when it came to them deciding to be near me. I didn't like that at all, you know, but I did brief them. I was like, you're going to deal with secondhand smoke. And they were like, no. And then they started coming. They're like, my God. I was like, yeah, polarizing, you know.
Would you say that this shift and this pivot in your life has redefined you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so let's talk about how you would like to be defined.
You know,
or even how you think that you are defined now, whether, you know.
Oh, you know what I've come to realize? People don't know me at all. Not even a little bit.
Did you know you at all inside of where you were?
It's something, because it was really a return to self.
Okay.
I knew who I was, but I also knew that I had lost myself.
Yeah. And that's how you knew that you weren't
exactly
who you thought you were.
Yeah. And so when it was like a return to self. And when I started peeling the layers, and I was like, oh, she's showing up. You know, she's here. When I think about who I am as a person, one, I'm a protector. I'm a nurturer by nature. That's just who I am. But I'm a soft girl. I'm a lover girl. You know, I like gentleness. I tell people I have done the things that I've had to do because nobody else was going to do it. Yeah. When it comes to having to be strong, having to take a position, having to take a stand, dictating nobody else was going to do it. I do not believe that is my natural role. I believe that was a learned role. Survival.
Yeah.
You know, I am more of the, let me take a step back. Let me sort this out in my head, and then I'll figure out how I would like to move forward. But it's not who I am. It's never been who I am. When I was young, I wanted to go to college and I wanted a doctorate, but not to start a company. Or I wanted a doctorate because I wanted to make sure my children were smart. I wanted to be able to educate my children. I expected to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be a housewife. I ain't working.
You wanted to be a doctorate with a stay-at-home mom.
As a stay-at-home mom.
So you could homeschool them.
Homeschool them.
To the best of the nines.
And if I have to go out and advocate, I can do that too because I'm well-informed. But I never wanted to be I'm in charge, I'm doing this. Oh, no, that's what I had to do, you know? But I think it's all a part of the journey.
Absolutely.
It's all a part of the journey. It made my life more rich. But when it comes to who I am, I'm kind of low key. I'm kind of shy, very reserved at times. People who know me know that I will get into the muck and mire and talk about it. But people who don't, it's like, she seems standoffish. No, I'm shy. I'm shy.
Yeah.
You know, I like simple things. I love the water. You know, I like hanging out. I do like to party. I like going places. I like to travel. And I like talking about wellness and education and helping people reach their fullest. I like that. You know, my ideal job would be like a office space where I can sit and talk to young women, young men, students. Where do you want to go? What does that look like for you? How can I help you get there? Let's create a roadmap. You know, I am more of that person. You know, I want to pontificate over ideas.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. We didn't even touch on your current company.
I know.
Which is
Access Dental Laboratories.
Access Dental Laboratories, the first Black dental laboratory in New York State.
No, the country.
In the country. And that is a phenomenal feat. And so based here in Syracuse, New York.
Yep.
How about you give us a little bit of what Access Dental does and it's the uniqueness of it?
So Access Dental is actually the first full-service African-American owned, woman-led dental laboratory in the country. And we provide dental restorations to the dental community. We are B2B, business to business. Our clients are dentists.
Okay.
We do bridges, crowns, veneers, implants, mouth guards, all of those sorts of things. You go to the dentist, you need a crown, your dentist will send the work to us.
Okay. And so you can also request the dentist gets the work from you guys.
Well, you know, like when I go to the dentist, if my dentist doesn't use my laboratory, my dentist will use my laboratory for my work.
Okay.
No ifs, ands, buts about it.
Right.
I'm like, what do I look like? You know?
Right.
But, you know, it's something, even with Access Dental, I'm always the person who says, why work for someone when you can work for yourself or turn it into a money-making business?
Absolutely.
And so when the idea came, I was like, oh, no, I can create a business out of that. I can create this. I can fund it. I can do all of these things. Because, you know, if a challenge is in front of me, I know how to rise to the occasion. And with Access Dental Laboratories, that's what I did.
Okay, absolutely. Then, so we talked about Access Dental. We have Access Global
Group.
Global Group.
Yeah.
And that is where it houses a lot of consulting, education, things of that nature. And then you also have Web.
Web, yeah. Wellness, equity, business development.
And that is focused on women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And touch on that, please.
You know, it's funny. When I started my entrepreneurship journey, I knew I wanted to be a business owner, but I all the little hub spots around here to get assistance, there was nobody who could assist me. I remember sitting with someone and they're like, well, you're going to need a business plan. And I was like, I got one. You're going to need a finance. I got one. Okay. What I need is A, B, C, and D. But I realized I knew more than they did. And I couldn't get help. And then there's always the Black experience. I tell people that, no, business development for Black women is different than business development for any other group. Yeah. And I'm not going to act like my journey is like yours. And I'm not going to let you convince me that my journey is like yours, because I know it's not, and I know what I'm up against. And so when it came to all of these little organizations around here, they didn't meet my needs at all. And I said, well, what do you need? Well, I need equity. I need equity. But I also need someone who understands that when I cross the threshold, I am bringing in a whole host of issues that they will never understand. A whole host. Just to be able to cross this threshold, I actually have to believe that I belong in this room, even though you have given me every reason to believe I don't. And so I started working on the wellness aspect of it because it was so much mental work. And then it is the work-life balance, family, equity in funding, equity in access, equity in information. And then it was business development. Because for me, business was the last aspect of it. It was everything else that I had to deal with just to get to business. And I'm like, I know I can't be the only one. Yeah. I can't be the only one. You know, and so that's why Web came about.
Yeah. So I see the product of your clients' success stories littered all over social media. Yeah. How can somebody get in contact with you for Web and also Access Dental? We'll also tag all your information when this posts live. But share what you like.
So I am very accessible, very, very.
You even have an 800 number.
I do. My 800 number is 800-803-2095.
There you go.
But and my email is Dr. R. Dawson at Gmail. But I'm also on Facebook at Dr. Shanelle R. Dawson. Access Dental Laboratories. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Shanelle R. Dawson and Access Dental Labs. And I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. You could always Google me.
Well, there you go. There you go.
I'm there.
Yes.
I am there.
So we ask all of our guests to share a quote with them that has sustained them, has, defines pivot for them, got them through some times. Good or bad?
I guess the quote that has sustained me the most is when you don't know what to do, when you don't have the answers, when you don't have the strength, find out, talk to God about what you need to ask for. When I was at my lowest point, I knew I wanted peace, joy, love, and abundance. I did not know anything else. I didn't have the strength to go to the Bible. I know that peace, joy, love, and abundance are the fruits of the Spirit. And so I would tell anyone, sometimes when all you have is a word, find out what that word was. On my worst days, I cried in my hands and I was like, God, I just need peace, joy, love, and abundance. On my best days, God, thank you for providing me with peace, joy, love, and abundance.
Dr. Shanelle Dawson.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.